Good morning from Disney's Hollywood Studios. Today is gonna be fun. Hi everybody and welcome to the world of Micah. Today is gonna be a very fun, a very special, a very Muppet episode here on the world of Micah. Today we're gonna be taking a closer look all around Walt Disney World, where on May 6th, 1990 on NBC, the Muppets at Walt Disney World was released. Now there's a lot of cool things about this special. For one, it's the Muppets at Walt Disney World. I mean, that's a cool right in its own. I love the Muppets and I love Walt Disney World. I'd love to see the Muppets at Walt Disney World, and luckily they made that happen. Two, the Muppets at Walt Disney World aired on NBC. Nowadays, you would never see that because NBC has a partnership with Universal. You would have seen this special now on ABC. So that's kind of fun to think that the Muppets and Disney had a special on NBC. And the third was this was the last Muppet special that we saw our dear friend, Mr. Jim Henson. Well, we actually heard our good friend, Mr. Jim Henson, because this was the last special that Jim Henson worked on, where he did the voice of Kermit and all the other Muppets that he would do. And he also controlled the Muppet Kermit puppet for this special. So it's pretty crazy to think that he would pass away 10 days later on May 16th, 1990. And today we're gonna be visiting Magic Kingdom, Epcot, and here, Disney's Hollywood Studios. I tracked down as many of the spots as I possibly could, showing you guys what it looks like today compared to the 90s. And I decided to bring along a good friend of mine visiting all the way from Canada. You guys know him as YouTube's own Chris, the Holy Moly. And look at the shirt. Nice shirt.
You should buy one. You guys should get it.
A little shameless plug there.
Totally.
And it's not really like a negative shameless plug because you're doing it, I'm not doing it. But they should buy a shirt because it looks so good.
Yes.
You guys ready to tag along? Let's go visit the filming locations for the Muppets at Walt Disney World. Let's take a closer look. Let's take a closer look. And the very first shot of the special started right here. We were greeted by Mr. Michael Eisner, Fozzie, and his mother. Now, having to line up this shot was pretty difficult, only because the way they shot it, it looks so superimposed. It doesn't really show you the actual length from where we are to the other side of the resort there. You see way on the other side, there's that little thing right above to the right of Michael Eisner's face. You guys see that? Well, they technically shot this shot right here, and they had to have it right about, I'd say, there.
This is something, huh, Ma?
Yes, could we have that chandelier for our cake?
Oh, that'd be really nice. Oh. Welcome, everyone. I'm in the lobby of the Grand Floridian Beach Resort in Walt Disney World.
Now, obviously, they were using a different lens than I have, but this is pretty much the exact shot. You can see the band's instruments still there on the same floor, almost. And then you have the banister there, where Fozzie, his mother, and Michael Eisner are sitting having tea and could be having some donuts from the Grand Floridian Cafe. But this is where Michael Eisner welcomed us to the magical world of Disney and started the special, The Muppets at Walt Disney World. And this is the same banister that was used in the shot. Michael would have been sitting about here, the table would have been here, the Muppeteers for Fozzie and his mother, and right over there, that little shell is what gave it away. And I'll have Chris kind of be where Michael Eisner was. It's probably right about, let's see, wow, it's such a weird angle. Yep, right there. You look just like him. So random that they used the Grand Floridian lobby as the opening shot for the special. They probably were in here for a couple hours and they only used about 10 seconds of film for that one shot. That kind of stuff blows my mind. That's a wrap on this location. Let's move on to the next. And that next location is here at the most magical place on earth, the Magic Kingdom. Good morning, Mary. How are you? You look practically perfect as always. And our first spot here at the Magic Kingdom is gonna be right here along the banks of the rivers of America. You can see the Liberty Bell is making its rounds, and in the distance you can see Splash Mountain already making some drops. But back in 1990, Splash Mountain wasn't there, and neither was this rock brick formation wall. This is the kind of fence that was right over here on this side. They've since then added this rock brick formation right here, but Stadler and Waldorf were standing somewhere in this location here. The reason I know is because you can see way in the distance all those trees, and there wasn't Splash Mountain. Also, you can see the banks of Tom Sawyer's Island and obviously the rivers of America, but I'm going to try and show you exactly where they were standing for this shot. The shot was right about here. If you look to the right of Stadler and Waldorf, you will see the banks of Tom Sawyer's Island. If you look in the distance, you will see the bridge and where Splash Mountain would have been built later on. And right where they're standing is where that white fence would have been. Now it's the rock brick formation. But this is about where they were standing in the shot. And this is where the famous line from Stadler and Waldorf was said. Are we in the wrong generation for this comedy? No, the wrong species.
Generation for this comedy? No, the wrong species.
I'm not sure exactly when they changed from the white fence to this brick rock thing, but it had to have been after the year 1990. Right about here is where the shot was. Now, the Liberty Bell would have been blocking the Haunted Mansion, but to the left of Fozzie's hat, you can see the tip top of the Haunted Mansion. And to the right is where Kermit would have been standing. This is where Kermit found Fozzie Bear. Pretty awesome. Fozzie was practicing his bear jokes to guests over here in Frontierland, and he wasn't having much luck. And then luckily Kermit shows up and introduces him to the Country Bears, who absolutely adored Fozzie's jokes.
Hey, Fozzie, looks like you need some help.
Kermit! Oh, Kermit! So good to see you!
Now again in the shot, you can see that there was a white fence here instead of this rock formation, but in the shot over there in the distance, you can see the rock formation was being built down there, so maybe that was when they were transitioning to making this brick rock formation wall. So wild. Just little things like that can change, but for the most part, everything here remains the exact same from 1990. And to think that Fozzie was standing right about here and Kermit was standing right there blows my mind. Now the next spot is going to be over here at Big Thunder Mountain, and that was pretty much the only thing besides the Frontierland Railroad, well, the Walt Disney World Railroad, that existed in Frontierland if you don't count Tom Sawyer's Island. So the only attraction you could ride here that wasn't like the Country Bears or a show or anything was Big Thunder Mountain. Wild. Well, it is the wildest ride in the wilderness, right?
It is.
Long before Chickapin Hill was sitting here, it was basically an empty bed of grass and a train station. And over to the right was Big Thunder Mountain. And I believe they shot the next spot over in this area. But I'm gonna try and match up the best I possibly can. I'm gonna have to try and find a little spot to show you guys where this next shot was, because where they shot it is exactly where Splash Mountain sits now. But the shot was right about here, and the reason I know is because two things. The top of Big Thunder Mountain right there, and that little fort right there. Miss Piggy and her friend were standing right about here. And Miss Piggy was talking about how she wanted to go to the Chinese theater. And he said, well, that's kind of a long walk from here. And she said, walk? Miss Piggy said, no, we'll get someone to give us a ride. And that's when he replied with, oh, you want a ride? And of course he puts her on Big Thunder Mountain Railroad.
Miss Piggy, I think that's probably a long walk from here.
Walk? Walk? Well, I'm certain someone can give us a ride.
You want to ride? Right this way, come on.
One of the funniest scenes in the Muppets at Walt Disney World. All right, we are headed to our last location here at the Magic Kingdom, and it's a pretty neat location because it features a young Raven Simone who sang Rainbow Connection with Kermit the Frog. And I don't care who sings it or what time of the day it is, when you hear Rainbow Connection, you can't help but shed a tear, so I'm gonna keep the sunglasses on for this one. And we've made it to our last stop here at the Magic Kingdom, which is to the left of the backside of Cinderella Castle. Now to get to this shot, you have to get down on this angle because you got to think, it was little Raven Simone. She was probably not 2 but 3 feet tall, if that, and little Kermit the Frog. But this is where they were standing, right about here in this shot. Now I'm gonna zoom in and show you guys exactly how the shot was. The shot was right about here.
I think I've been dreaming about this day for years. Well, I guess there are bigger dreams than mine.
What is your dream?
I beg your pardon?
I heard what you said. What is your dream?
Well, that's going to be a wrap for the Magic Kingdom. Time to head to our next location spot, which is going to be at Epcot. And the thing that always is funny to me about these Walt Disney World specials, especially the Muppets at Walt Disney World, is they make it seem like Walt Disney World is just one large place. That you're realistically not having to get on a monorail or a ferry boat or drive your own car to get from park to park. That you literally can just walk a couple of feet and you're in Epcot. And that's not the case, but I always thought it was pretty funny that when you watch old Walt Disney World specials, they make it seem like everything's just a hop and a skip away. And the next location is right over here, back where Ellen's Energy Adventure used to be, and the Wonders of Life Pavilion. The shot was right about here. You had Gonzo and his chicken, and I want to say the chicken was his girlfriend. Can't remember her name. But you had Gonzo and his chicken girlfriend standing right about here. The Wonders of Life Pavilion was in the background. This is where Gonzo asked the question, what do you want to see first? The Wonders of Life Pavilion, the motion thing over there? What's that?
Now, what would you like to see first? The Wonders of Life exhibit or the ocean thing over there? What's that?
And where he was looking to is exactly what I was trying to find. A trash can. And Gonzo would go and stick his head in the trash can right there. And he said, woo! Used paper cup exhibit. Boy, these Disney people are always on the cutting edge.
Woo! Used paper cup exhibit. Boy, these Disney people are always on the cutting edge.
Now what's kind of crazy is, I can't really match up the shot exactly, but you can see the wall right there in the shot. This grass right here, and even look at that. There's a trash can right there. Now, I'm not gonna stick my head in a trash can, but Gonzo was, well, like this. Sticking his head in there. Whoa! Used cup exhibit. Those Disney guys really are on the cutting edge. But we're gonna be seeing a whole new galaxy coming to Epcot, and sooner or later, none of this over here will look like it did back in the 90s when the Muppets were visiting Walt Disney World. So I'm glad I got to document this. And the next spot we're gonna be visiting is right behind Spaceship Earth. To the left of us was Communicore back in the day, and you can see the building in this shot. Now they had placed a makeshift lamp right about here where my finger is in this shot. Had a little street pole. Well, obviously there is no street pole here, but that building you can see in the background had the old school Communicore logo on it, and the light poles right there to the left are still the exact same. The color scheme on the building has changed, but right here is where Professor Honeydew and Beaker would be standing, and Beaker had a pail, a water pail on his head. And Professor Honeydew draws a pair of eyes on the water pail for Beaker and says, there you go, Beaky, that should help.
There you go, Beaky. That should help.
It's pretty cool to see how much this building has changed, but a lot of it matches up as far as architecture goes and the lights and everything. Just the color scheme, and obviously the Communicore sign has been removed. All right, guys, the next stop is going to be over here next to Journey into Imagination, to the left of the Imagination Pavilion, where we meet Scooter and Bean Bunny. Right over here as that monorail makes its way past Spaceship Earth. What a classic shot. But right over here where the famous water fountains, the jumping water, this is where Bean Bunny and Scooter were standing. And right here is the shot. Bean and Scooter would have been standing right about in this area here. You can see that they have changed out from plants to rocks. They have rocks now surrounding the water holes. But right here is where Bean would have shouted 15 love, because he would have slapped the water, boom, right before it would have gone into the fountain there. And Scooter looked at the camera and said, cute is his middle name. Bean jumps back with, actually it's Norman. Classic Muppets, classic jokes.
15 love.
Cute is his middle name.
Actually, it's Norman.
Oh.
And they had a ton of extras standing along the sides, just in awe of the water fountains. Now, as you guys can see, a few people are out here, but for the most part, there's no one out here. in awe of these amazing water fountains. But I don't really remember when there was grass in between these. As far as I can remember, there's been rocks, so it had to have been after the year 1990. The next spot here at Epcot is going to be in the World Showcase, where the Swedish chef set up a Svenska's taco stand right about here. And he was selling tacos. One of the funniest scenes, because I loved the Swedish chef, the fact that he set up a taco stand right here in front of the Mexico Pavilion is one of the greatest things in the world. The top of the Mexico Pavilion and the Svenska's taco logo, the little banner going atop, and then you can see the little tacos and all the ingredients right in front of him. And he had 3 flavors, mild, medium, and hot. And of course, he served Professor Honeydew and Beaker a taco, and he gave Beaker the hot sauce, which sent Beaker in a frenzy, and he actually knocked the water pail off of his head. But then again, it fell back on. Now you can get tacos here at the quick service building, but I would want to know what the Svenska's tacos tasted like from Swedish Chef, and I would definitely like to try the hot sauce. But yeah, this was one of the spots here they used the World Showcase. Now we're gonna head over to Germany for the next location, and one of my personal favorites. Now the next spot was filmed right here in the Germany Pavilion, and it's probably, if I had to choose to be a extra, if you will, in the filming of the Muppets Visit Walt Disney World, it probably would be this location, because for one, you're in Germany, which is one of the best spots in the World Showcase for beer, and two, Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem put on a concert right here. Straight ahead, they put the stage. Pretty awesome to think you could have been an extra and been standing right around in this area and watching Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem.
Get me to the stage, let the party begin.
Now what's cool is that building right there, that's where the banner was going across that said Dr. Teeth. Stage was right about in this area, and you can see the top of that steeple there at the tip top of the stage they built. But this is where that awesome concert was happening. What a cool time to be an extra for any Disney film. But I'm also curious as to why they chose the German Pavilion, the Germany Pavilion, as the backdrop for Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem. Maybe some of the members were German. Who knows? Let's move on to the next spot. And the next spot was not a filming location, but I wanted to show you guys the Green Man himself, Kermit. He's got his own topiary this year for Flower and Garden Festival, and it's pretty awesome. The iconic shot of Kermit riding the bicycle. Now, did anybody else feel kind of weird the first time you saw Kermit's legs? I did. I always thought it was kind of odd. But this is a very cool topiary, and I thought it was very fitting for today's adventure to show off this topiary. And there's also one of Miss Piggy, and they outdid themselves with this Miss Piggy topiary. The suitcases, the mirrors, the lights. Wow. Pretty incredible, right? Gotta love Miss Piggy. Miss Piggy loves herself too. There's no doubt about that. She's her #1 fan. And I love that they put her over here in Paris, in France, where she belongs. Well, you guys, that's a wrap for Epcot. Now we're going to be heading over to our final destination of the day, Disney's Hollywood Studios, but back in 1990 it was Disney-MGM Studios. And we have made it to where the actual special began. The Muppets, when they first came to Walt Disney World, started here at Disney's Hollywood Studios, then Disney-MGM Studios, and they ended the special here at Disney's Hollywood Studios, or MGM Studios. And right here is where the Muppets technically broke in. As you guys can see in this shot, Charles Groban was standing right where that man in the shorts and jacket, the cast member right there, the turnstiles, is standing. They had a gate with Mickey Mouse's face all over the gate, but right there is where the Muppets would have broken into, technically, because Animal got mad and broke the turnstile and threw it, which then all the Muppets decided, hey, it was okay to go in because there was no longer a turnstile.
Here, can we come in?
You got your tickets?
Matter of fact, I just remembered I left my wallet in my knapsack back in the swamp.
Oh, that's too bad.
Any of you guys got any money on you? Gee, Kermit always does that stuff for us.
And right here at the package pickup was where the security office was meant to be. And right here you can see in the shot Charles Groban to the left and the other security guard and all the Muppets standing right here. He had captured the Muppets and he was on the phone with Mr. Mickey Mouse, which that's where Kermit asked if he could speak to Mickey because they knew each other.
Well, Mickey and I are old buddies.
And Kermit mentions to Charles Grodin that he and Mickey know each other because they're both part of FASFA, Fictional Animal Stars of America. Pretty funny.
Sure, we're both members of FASA. FASA? Yeah, Fictional Animal Stars of America. Now, let me talk to Mickey.
And right about here was the shot where Rizzo and his family walked in, and Rizzo said, "Where's Mickey Mouse? Come on, you rats. It's like distant family."
Hey, where's Mickey Mouse? Hey, come on, you rats. It's like distant family.
Not a whole lot has changed here at Oscars. Pretty cool to be able to come and match this up and see that pretty much nothing has changed. Even the Never Knock sign right there can be seen in the shot to the right of Rizzo. Rizzo was kind of standing pretty much where those trash cans are. This next shot was right here with Charles Grodin right in the middle of the road where that white paint strip is, and he had the 7 dwarfs with him. Those were his secret men helping him trying to capture the Muppets.
Dopey! Dopey! Keep an eye on that sign, the right flank. Dopey! Come on, man, they're not on the ground, they're not in the sky, they're all around in here.
Pretty crazy to think about the 7 dwarfs being at Hollywood Studios or MGM back in the day, but to think that they completely cleared the street here and had guests on either side and had Charles Grodin walking down this street, Hollywood Boulevard, with the 7 dwarfs in search of the Muppets. That can only happen at Walt Disney World, right? The next spot is right here. Charles Grodin had captured Rizzo and was using Rizzo to try and find the Muppets. Of course, Rizzo really wasn't helping too much. He was kind of using Charles Grodin to get free ice cream and root beer and hot dogs and, you know, being typical Rizzo. But I like this scene because Rizzo's seen hanging on the back of Charles Grodin, eating a Mickey bar, and he says, "Boy, this ice cream's really good. What we could go for is some root beer."
No, this ice cream's really good. Now all we need is some root beer.
Pretty cool. You can see the Hollywood and Vine sign to the left right there, and to the right there was a Coca-Cola sign. It's now being blocked by this tree, but the sign is still there. You just have to walk over to the right to see the Coca-Cola sign, but it's still there after all these years. So basically, Charles Grodin's character, Quentin Fitzwaller, he's kind of the screw-up of Walt Disney World, if I do say so. He's not the best security guard, but he means well. He's always trying to impress his boss, and on this particular day, the Muppets broke into Walt Disney World, and he has to find them. And so him and Rizzo on a hunt to capture the Muppets. And right about here was the next shot with Miss Piggy and her friend. They had made their way to MGM Studios. Finally, Miss Piggy was getting closer and closer to the Chinese theater, but she wasn't there yet. But she keeps asking, where's the Chinese theater? Well, little does Miss Piggy know, she's really right across the street from the famous Chinese theater.
No, Beauregard, we are going to the Chinese theater.
As you can see in this shot, a whole lot has changed here at the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular. Mostly just overgrown trees and plants, and they built this little entrance area here with the netting on it. That wasn't here back in the 90s or when Indiana Jones first opened with the park. It used to be a little bare as you walked in, and by bare I mean empty. But now that it's overgrown, it kind of gives it some character. But I do remember a time when I would come to Indiana Jones and see nothing but that sign as you walked in. I bet if Quentin Fitzwaller saw this sign here at MGM Studios back in the day, he would know that the Muppets really did belong here. But then again, that was a different time. The next shot is here at the former Streets of America. Now this is a part of the Grand Avenue, Grand Park area next to the Muppet Courtyard. But straight ahead was where this next shot was filmed. It was the New York skyline, the backdrop that was once a part of the Streets of America. You can see Kermit and his nephew walking down the street. And Kermit was talking to him about how he wishes they were back at the swamp with the family because they'd probably be doing the mud ball game and skimming derby. And Robin is asking him exactly, what is mud ball and skimming derby?
Think we're missing anything?
Well, of course, they probably started the mud ball game and the skimming derby.
Skimming derby?
You gotta see how much pond scum you can skim. Scum skimming is a great sport.
Pretty nice, all right.
It's pretty crazy to think that the streets of America are no longer here, but this building still exists from the streets of America, but you no longer have the New York skyline that once graced its beautiful presence right about in that area straight ahead. And we've made it to the very last spot. There's gonna be two separate spots here at the former Great Movie Ride, the Chinese Theater, here in the courtyard. The first spot is right here. Kermit the Frog's handprint and signature, and also Jim Henson's signature. And as you can see, Jim Henson signed it there, 8 of 89. Now the interesting thing is, this had been done in 1989, but in the Muppet special, they made it seem like Kermit was actually putting his handprints here for the first time. And this was the year 1990, May of 1990. So it's kind of funny to think that this had already been here, but they made it and pulled it off, seeming as Kermit the Frog was here for the first time, putting his hands right there. As you guys can see right here in this lined up photograph, Kermit's stepping down and putting his hands in the cement. You can see a few legs to the back side of him. And if you look at those legs, they're not actual people legs. Those are Muppet legs. Kind of funny. I guess they just threw together some Muppets and had them standing off to the side instead of hiring some extras. It's a pretty cool shot of Kermit looking up at the camera and putting his little tiny hands in that cement. And they did not show Jim Henson's signature, which is right next to it. Movie magic, and kind of funny movie magic too. And the very last scene is right here. Miss Piggy would have been standing right about there where my finger's pointing, and she had gotten her feet stuck in the cement. And the Muppets made their way all the way back to the swamp, and they realized Miss Piggy was not with them. So they all had to run back here to the Chinese Theater and try and rescue Miss Piggy and get her out of the cement. And this is the final scene and the final location for the Muppets at Walt Disney World.
We left her at the Chinese Theater.
And the funny thing is, there's only a Kermit the Frog signature walking around here. There is no Miss Piggy. Or was there at one point a Miss Piggy signature and it's been removed? Who knows? Well, you guys, I think we did it. I think we successfully found all the spots I wanted to show from the Muppets at Walt Disney World and their filming locations. Which means it's time to say goodbye. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Man, I had such a blast traveling around Walt Disney World Resort today and showing you guys the filming locations for the Muppets at Walt Disney World. I've been wanting to do this for quite some time, and while I was sick and out, this had been going through my mind and planning and doing all the research and everything. And thank you guys for sticking with me. I know it's been about a week or so since I released a video. For those of you who are new to this channel, thank you for joining along in my YouTube adventures here on the World of Micah channel. If you haven't yet, go ahead and click that subscribe button because it's free and it'll keep you updated with my latest video. And go ahead and click that notification bell because that will also send you a notification for when I post a new video. And I want to thank Chris for coming along and tagging along and joining me on my silly adventure of finding the most ridiculous filming location ever.
Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely.
I had a blast. I love the Muppets. I've been watching them since 1976. You can tell by the hair, I'm an old.
No, you're aging like fine wine. You're just like the Muppets. They age. They get better with age. So I had a blast. I'm so glad you're here. If you guys haven't yet, go ahead and check out Chris's channel. I will put a link in the description box. The Holy Moly. Is it youtube.com/theholymoly?
It is.
Awesome. Easy peasy pumpkin peasy. Holy moly, that was a tongue twister. I'll see you on the next episode of World of Mike, everybody. Until then, stay weird. Goodbye.